My iPad screen lit up on the kitchen counter, vibrating softly against the granite. It was a crisp Tuesday morning in my quiet suburban home in Ohio, the kind of morning meant for strong black coffee and tending to the hydrangeas. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, expecting a weather alert or a text from my garden club. Instead, a push notification from my banking app stared back at me. Transaction alert, 850 $850 charged at Peak Performance Golf and Leisure. I frowned, tapping the screen to unlock it. I hadn't been to a golf shop since my husband passed away 5 years ago. My eyes scanned the account details. This was the emergency credit card, the one I had given my daughter Sarah 2 years ago when her husband Greg was between jobs. I had handed it to her in this very kitchen, telling her it was for medical bills, unexpected car repairs, or keeping the lights on. I scrolled down the recent activity feed, my coffee cooling beside me. Below the golf shop charge was a $200 tab at a high-end steakhouse downtown dated last Friday. Below that, a $150 charge for premium streaming services. My chest tightened, not with panic, but with a cold, steady realization. I didn't immediately pick up the phone to call Sarah. Crying or demanding answers right now would only give them the upper hand. I needed to see the whole picture before I made my next move. Taking a slow, deep breath, I carried the iPad over to my small home office, sitting down at the heavy oak desk. I opened my laptop, ready to dig into the archives of my own financial life. The single golf charge was just a thread. I was about to pull it, completely unaware of how much of my daughter's life would unravel with it. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the house as I spent the next 2 hours downloading PDF statements from the past 18 months. I organized them into a neat folder on my desktop, opening them one by one. The pattern emerged quickly, and it left a sour taste in my mouth. Greg hadn't started by stealing large sums. He was methodical. It began with a $30 charge at a gas station here, a $50 grocery run there. Things that could easily be brushed off as minor emergencies. But over the last 6 months, the restraint had vanished. I found recurring charges for a luxury meal delivery service, expensive concert tickets, and hundreds of dollars spent at a boutique auto detailing shop for Greg's truck. What disgusted me most was a series of charges grouped around last Christmas. While Greg and Sarah had handed me a framed photo of the three of us as my gift, my credit card had quietly financed Greg's purchase of a designer watch and a weekend getaway to a cabin. I closed the laptop, resting my hands flat on the desk. For a brief moment, a wave of betrayal washed over me. I had worked hard alongside my late husband to build a comfortable retirement. We weren't wealthy, but we were secure. Greg was treating my life savings like his personal trust fund, and Sarah was either completely blind or entirely complicit. I didn't shed a tear. 40 years of nursing had taught me how to handle bleeding wounds. You don't panic, you apply pressure. I walked to the hallway closet and pulled out the spare key to my house that I knew Sarah kept on her key ring. I stared at the brass metal, formulating a plan. Before the week was over, I would plug every leak in my life, and I wouldn't need a single lawyer to do it. I invited them over for our usual Sunday dinner, acting as if absolutely nothing was wrong. I roasted a chicken, set the table with the good plates, and waited. When the front door opened, Greg walked in first, tossing his keys loudly onto the console table. He didn't carry a host gift, not even a bottle of cheap wine. Sarah trailed behind him, looking tired, but offering a tight smile. We sat at the dining table, the clinking of silverware filling the silence. I watched Greg carefully. He ate quickly, taking the largest portions without asking. "So, Evelyn." Greg wiped his mouth with a cloth napkin. "We were looking at that new subdivision across town. The houses have massive backyards, perfect for when we eventually have kids. We're thinking of putting down an offer." I took a slow sip of my water. "That sounds like a big financial commitment, Greg. Are you getting a promotion at the logistics firm?" He waved a hand dismissively. Not yet, but we have some solid backing. We figured we could dip into our reserves for the down payment. We know you'd want us in a safe neighborhood. He was looking right at me, his eyes filled with a bold, sickening entitlement. He wasn't asking for my help. He was assuming it. He considered my accounts as his reserves. I turned to my daughter. Sarah, do you think it's a good time to buy? She avoided my gaze, pushing peas around her plate. Greg handles the big money decisions, Mom. He says we have a safety net. I nodded slowly, placing my fork down. The test was over. They had failed. They didn't view me as a mother or a person. They viewed me as an endless ATM. As I cleared the plates that evening, listening to Greg turn up the volume on my television in the living room, my plan solidified. By tomorrow morning, their safety net was going to disappear. Monday morning, I was at the local bank branch right as the doors unlocked. I didn't cause a scene or ask to speak to the fraud department. I sat down with a personal banker, a polite young man named David, and simply stated my requests. I closed the joint emergency credit card account entirely. I didn't freeze it. I scorched the earth. Then I transferred the bulk of my checking and savings into a newly opened account with a different account number, requesting a new debit card and entirely new online banking credentials. I made sure to disable any overdraft protection tied to my name. All set, Evelyn. David smiled, handing me a fresh stack of paperwork. Your new passwords are active and the old card will decline immediately. Thank you, David, I replied, tucking the folder into my leather tote. My next stop was the local hardware store. I bought 2 heavy-duty deadbolts. I didn't hire a professional. I went home, found my late husband's toolkit, and spent the afternoon unscrewing the old locks and installing the new ones myself. The metallic click of the new deadbolt sliding into place was the most satisfying sound I had heard in weeks. I took the old spare key that Sarah used, walked to the outdoor trash can, and dropped it in. I spent the rest of the evening brewing a pot of chamomile tea and reading a novel on the porch. I knew exactly what would happen next. Greg liked to buy his expensive cigars online on Tuesday evenings. The trap was fully set, the bait was gone, and all I had to do was wait for the trap to snap shut. It happened exactly at 9:00 a.m. on Wednesday. I was watering the ferns on the front porch when a car tires screeched into my driveway. Sarah burst out of the driver's side, not bothering to close the door. She practically ran up the steps, her face flushed with a mix of panic and anger. Mom, why did you block the card account? She demanded, breathless. Greg is furious. He tried to buy plane tickets for a business trip this morning and his whole wallet app is declining. Did you mess something up online? I set my watering can down carefully. I didn't raise my voice. I simply smiled, a tight, controlled expression, and gestured for her to follow me inside. Sit down, Sarah. I pointed to the kitchen stool. She hovered defensively. Mom, fix this. Greg is so stressed out. I pulled the thick folder of printed statements from the drawer and slid it across the island counter. Open it. Sarah hesitated, then flipped open the cover. Her eyes darted across the highlighted lines. The golf gear, the luxury dinners, the boutique car detailing. This is the emergency card, Sarah, I stated firmly. The one for medical bills and groceries. Do you see any groceries here? She swallowed hard, turning the page. Then she stopped. Her finger traced a line from 3 months ago. A hotel in Miami, she whispered. We didn't go to Miami. No, you didn't. I leaned forward slightly. But Greg did. And he took his brother funding their entire weekend retreat with my retirement money. He hasn't been using this for your household. He's been using it to fund a bachelor lifestyle you know nothing about. Sarah was stunned, staring at the paper as if it were written in a foreign language. The anger drained from her face, replaced by a hollow, sickening realization. I expected her to apologize. I expected her to realize she had been used just as much as I had. Instead, I watched the gears turn in her head as the shock morphed into a desperate need to protect her marriage. "There has to be a mistake," Sarah stammered, pushing the folder back toward me. He he told me he was moving funds around. He was going to pay you back, Mom. You know he's been stressed about money." I crossed my arms, keeping my posture rigid. "Stressed people don't buy $800 golf simulators, Sarah. Thieves do." "Don't call him that," she yelled, her voice echoing in the kitchen. "You have plenty of money. You live in this big house all by yourself. We're trying to build a future, and you're agonizing over a few expenses. If you just talk to him—" "The bank is closed, Sarah." I cut her off. My voice was low, carrying zero room for debate. "I am not a bank, and I am certainly not a fool. Your husband stole from me. You allowed it by handing over a card that didn't belong to you. You're being incredibly selfish." She spat back, grabbing her purse. "Greg was right. You never wanted him in this family. I wanted a son-in-law who respects my home and my hard work," I replied without blinking. "You have a choice to make about your own future, but my money is no longer part of it." She glared at me, tears of frustration in her eyes before spinning around and marching out the front door. I listened to her car peel out of the driveway. I didn't chase after her. I didn't cry. I just picked up the folder, placed it back in the drawer, and locked it. The boundary was drawn in stone. The house was quiet again, but my mind was moving quickly. Cutting off the money was only the first step. I sat at the kitchen table with a notepad, mentally listing everything Greg had his hands on. My eyes drifted to the window, looking out toward the detached two-car garage at the back of the property. Since my husband passed, I rarely went in there. A year ago, Greg had offered to clean it out for me, suggesting he could use a small corner to store some of his bulk work supplies. I had agreed, handing him the spare padlock key. I grabbed my jacket and a flashlight. The autumn air was crisp as I walked down the gravel path. I inputted the code on the side door keypad, only to find a flashing red light. He had changed the code. A cold flash of anger sparked in my chest, but I pushed it down. I walked back to the house, grabbed a heavy pair of bolt cutters from the basement utility closet, and returned to the garage. It took some effort, my shoulders burning with the exertion, but the heavy padlock finally snapped. I pushed the heavy door open and clicked on my flashlight. It wasn't a small corner of storage. The entire garage was filled. Greg was running an unauthorized side hustle, flipping refurbished gym equipment. Dozens of heavy weights benches and treadmills crowded the space, alongside mini fridges stacked with his favorite imported beers. He was using my property as his personal rent-free warehouse while spending my money. I didn't throw a fit. I simply walked out, drove to the hardware store for a second time that week, and bought the heaviest, most complicated industrial padlock they sold. I snapped it onto the latch, pocketed the only key, and went back inside to make dinner. It didn't take long for him to notice. Thursday evening, right as the sun was setting, Greg's truck aggressively pulled into my driveway. He stomped up the front steps, rattling the door handle. When it didn't open, thanks to my new deadbolt, he pounded his fist against the wood. I took my time walking to the door. I didn't unlatch the chain when I opened it a few inches. "What the hell is going on, Evelyn?" Greg growled, his face red. "Your locks are changed. The garage is locked. I have clients waiting for that equipment. You have until tomorrow at 5:00 p.m. to remove your inventory from my property," I said, evenly, staring directly into his angry eyes. "Bring a moving truck. I will unlock the garage for exactly 1 hour. After that, whatever is left goes to the scrapyard." He scoffed, leaning closer to the crack in the door. "You can't do that. That's my business in there. You're trying to ruin us because of a few misunderstandings with the credit card." "It's not a misunderstanding, Greg. It's theft and trespassing." He sneered, dropping the charming son-in-law act entirely. "You think you're so smart. If you do this, you're never seeing Sarah again. When we have kids, they won't even know your name. You'll die alone in this big, empty house. It was a cruel, calculated threat designed to terrify an older woman into submission. But I looked at the man standing on my porch, and I felt nothing but pity for my daughter. "I'd rather be alone than be a host for a parasite," I answered softly. I shut the solid oak door directly in his face, turning the deadbolt with a loud, definitive click. Friday arrived with a heavy, gray sky. Promptly at 4:30 p.m., a rented box truck backed down my driveway. Greg hopped out, accompanied by one of his friends. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead, refusing to look at the house. I stood on the back porch, wearing a thick sweater, holding the single key to the heavy padlock. I walked over in silence, unlocked the metal latch, and stepped entirely out of their way. Greg tried to catch my eye, attempting to puff his chest out, but I simply ignored him. I pulled a small lawn chair out of the shed, sat down, and watched them sweat. For 45 minutes, Greg and his friend grunted and cursed as they hauled heavy metal benches and weights into the truck. When the garage was finally completely empty, sweeping away the dust they had left behind, Greg walked over to me. He held out his hand, palm up. "We need the new house key," he demanded. "Sarah left some winter coats in the guest room." I reached into my pocket, but I didn't pull out a key. I pulled out 3 large garbage bags I had packed that morning, containing every single item they had ever left in my house. I dropped them at his feet on the gravel. "Everything you own is in those bags." I said, my voice steady and cold. "You are no longer welcome inside my home. The financial support is over. The storage is over. This arrangement is terminated." Greg opened his mouth to argue, but he looked at my face and realized he had absolutely zero leverage. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't emotional. I was an impenetrable wall. He grabbed the bags in silence, threw them into the truck, and drove away. 3 months passed. The winter frost settled over the neighborhood, covering my front lawn in a quiet, peaceful blanket of white. I had joined a local book club, started redecorating the guest room into a painting studio, and my bank accounts remained untouched by anyone but me. One Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was Sarah. I let it ring twice before answering. "Mom?" Her voice was small, shaking slightly. "Can we talk?" "I'm listening," I replied, wiping paint off my fingers with a rag. She sniffled. "Things are really hard. Greg's business isn't doing well. We can't make the rent this month. He said I should ask if you could just float us for a few weeks. Just a small loan." I closed my eyes. The cycle was trying to restart, fueled by her desperate need to fix a man who only knew how to take. "No, Sarah," I said gently but firmly. "I will not give Greg another dime." "But Mom, please," she cried. "What am I supposed to do?" "You are supposed to wake up, sweetheart. My door is always open to you if you ever decide to leave and stand on your own 2 feet. But my wallet is permanently closed to your husband." I didn't wait for her to argue. I said a quiet goodbye and hung up the phone. I poured myself a fresh cup of tea, walked over to the window, and looked out at my secure, quiet property. I wasn't exactly sure what the future held for my daughter, but for the first time in years, I knew exactly who was in control of my own life. And the peace that came with that was worth every single penny. If there's one thing I've learned from this whole ordeal, it's that protecting your peace sometimes means making uncomfortable choices, even with the people you love. We spend our whole lives building a safe haven for our children, but we can't forget to keep a key for ourselves. Setting a boundary isn't about punishing someone or being cruel. It's about drawing a line in the sand and saying, "My love for you is unconditional, but my bank account is not." Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your grown children is to refuse to catch them so they can finally learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. Have you ever had to draw a hard line with a family member? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to read your stories. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear more real-life stories about navigating life's messy moments with a little bit of grace and a whole lot of boundaries, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.